welcome and hi everyone. I would like from my side also to congratulate the organizers for this wonderful and most stimulating event. And I'm very pleased to have been included in this session today because I think we complement each other very, very nicely. We will be, from my presentation today, we will remain in the same geographical location as Isabella's presentation, that is distant Mediterranean, but we will be traveling in time closer to the present day. And I will be talking about visiting architectural structures by means of VR this time. So this is why I say we complement nicely, because from the room scale immersive projections, we'll move to goggle wearing immersive environments. And through my through drawing on my practical aspects of my experience of constructing building a specific VR installation, I will try to link to all the critical points and reflective aspects of the discussion that has been going on every afternoon this past week. Before I start with the topic of my presentation, allow me to say a few words about our group. At the Virtual Environments Lab, we work on immersive environments, urban modeling, and digital simulation for the study of built heritage and the creative exploration of historical narratives. We are developing ICT-enabled user-driven tools for social resilience and inclusion with an application in historical context. Through our research, we focus on historic space and cross-disciplinary nature of the pressing challenges facing our cities, such as climate, gentrification, and decay, which are explored through externally funded projects, the European Research Infrastructure of Digital Humanities and the Arts, and the JPI Urban Europe network, where we study matters of sustainable and livable urban areas. In my presentation today, I will discuss about the use of VR technology in expanding the space of the gallery and activating the architectural archive in new ways of visitor engagement with the socio-cultural aspects of architecture. In particular, I will discuss about the use of digital technologies in presenting in galleries and museums always sites that are associated with difficult narratives. This draws on the concept of difficult heritage coined by Sharon McDonald in 2007, which refers to heritage that deals with unsettling histories rather than heroic hegemonic narratives. In other words, it entails human products, events, and sites which may present controversial and sensitive subjects. I will discuss about this through the analysis of the theoretical considerations and practical challenges of creating a VR-enabled installation in the context of the exhibition Past Forward that I co-curated at the State Gallery of Contemporary Art in Nicosia, Cyprus, which is the last divided capital city of Europe. Our exhibition drew from the presented for the first time archive of one of the most influential architects of the modern in Cyprus, who formed in multiple ways the built environment of the country and contributed to the modernization of the society of Cyprus during the mid-20th century, from its late colonial administration to the first identity building decades of the establishment of the Republic of Cyprus. Besides the display of content sourced from the archive, which is typically used in architectural exhibitions, such as items in the list on the left side of your screen, our aim in this exhibition was to enrich the experience of the visitor by means of producing and presenting new and interpretative material, including films, digital presentations, crowdsourcing, and through the use of virtual reality. Here are some photographs of one of the spaces of the exhibition, which show how published material from the archive was on display and was integrated in a construction we built to accommodate the scene of public discourse, which functioned as a stage of dialogue, as we called, during public events that we organized. These are some views of the archival content that we had on display and how it was displayed. And this is a photograph of what we called an archive cabinet that we designed to hold archival material that was meant to be explored by the visitors by allowing them to pull and slide the drawers to discover the original content that was on display. Here's some photographs from public guided tours we organized and objects we displayed from the architect's office, and how films and interviews that were made for the purpose of the exhibition were presented to the visitors of the exhibition. And of course, the space of our virtual reality installation. And I would like here to mention that we are currently developing a 360 virtual tour of the whole exhibition that we have documented. The exhibition was spatially organized over the 3 floors of the industrial heritage listed building, which was designed by the architect himself in the 1960s and was recently repurposed to host the State Gallery of Contemporary Art of Cyprus. Now, the building of the VR experience I will be presenting today, which of course belongs to the architect of our exhibition, is located in the infamous ghost city of Varosia, which was left abandoned by its inhabitants during the bicommunal conflict and the consequent war of 1974. Part of the city was recently opened to the public under the Turkish Cypriot administration, a political decision that was that has brought condemnation from the EU, as well as by the majority of both communities on the island. This is a recent photograph that I took of the infamous ghost city that still stands up as a time shard from 1974 and the war. The part of the city we will be visiting in VR by exploring the building of our interest, which you see in the center of the frame, is still inaccessible even today after the opening of some quarters of the city. Now that I have introduced the site and its history to you, let us move on to the core of my talk. Through my presentation, I would like to raise the following questions. How can VR technologies encourage visitor engagement with inaccessible built heritage? And moreover, what are the challenges and the opportunities of mediating multi-layered narratives about buildings? How do the digital technologies remediate the richness of visiting a place? The context of this inquiry regards our effort in offering to the visitors new opportunities of engaging with the content of the exhibition. Responding to current discourse about the custodial approaches to museum collections and the sensitivity of discussing about difficult heritage, we produced a VR experience by creating new presentations of aspects of the historical built environment under study, rather than aiming to develop representations of a single hegemonic historical narrative, which would promote as the curators of the exhibition. To do so, we translated narrative mechanisms drawn from museology and the arts to the digital space domain. That is, we were not aiming at visualizing one specific history, but rather we focused on creating structures for telling stories. Specifically, our methodology of creating the immersive experience was driven by the following objectives: the clarity of purpose of the exhibit, of the installation, the layering, the engagement, the level of engagement, its authenticity and the authenticity of the content that was presented, and its resonance. In the following part of the presentation, I will selectively show how we pursued some of these objectives. For example, with regards to the clarity of purpose, our concept of presenting heritage spaces drew inspiration from the film genre of city symphonies, which was developed as a film genre in modernity to illustrate the forceful transformations of the built environment in the rapidly changing cities. Notably, these films had no plot. Instead, their structure is borrowed from the movements and motifs of the hours of the day, rather than the dynamics of narrative pacing. So we employed this dawn to dusk time frame that was used by this film genre in order to construct our virtual VR experience. And you see here a speeded up objective view of the environment. from the start of the day until the sun sets. You see how the building was introduced, and then the built environment around it. And I will now move forward. So that you notice also the change of the lighting based on the hour of the day. This is in real time. And again, in fast forward until the evening. Now, next was the objective of authenticity. At this point, I should mention that the architecture and the function of the presented building was highly innovative in 1952 when it was built. And this historical value of the architecture of the building, together with the dramatic transformations of its built and natural context, as well as the fact that it is still not accessible today, were the main motives for us to conduct the research in presenting the building through an immersive visualization. And in this context, we reconstructed, as I mentioned, the built environment as well as its architecture. And I will show you now very briefly and quickly how we used survey maps and aerial photographs to position exactly all the buildings around our building of interest. And they were also located not only in terms of in plan view on the map, but also in terms of height to accurately represent the feeling of the mass around the building. And of course, with regards to the reconstruction of the authenticity of the reconstruction of the architecture, since we had access to archival material, we used the drawings to model the building exactly as it was designed by the architect. And we also used crowdsourced material and material from the archive to understand and identify the color scheme and the materials of the building, in order to try and accurately represent and reconstruct the building as close as possible. Now, another objective for us was the resonance of this immersive environment. And for that, we aimed at creating the context of the building. We focused on how we could offer to the visitors opportunities for reflection about the transformations of the natural and built environment that took place over the decades. These transformations present challenges for our cities in Cyprus and of the region, even today, due to climate change, 50 years later, a topic that was discussed also in the exhibition. And specifically, we try to create atmospheres that involve not only the reconstruction, the representation of the atmosphere itself in terms of air, but also of the land and the sea. And I will explain here what I mean. So, for example, reconstructing the wet haze, the fog, the humidity of the dusk from the documentation of the site was a creative mechanism for us to generate a more intimate experience, generated by the short-sightedness of the visitor wearing the goggles, while we also acted in response to a technical challenge that was for us to hide the abstract representation of the surrounding built environment. And you see here again through the goggles what is the experience of the virtual visitor. Note that we decided to start the experience from the environment, exactly because when the building was built there was nothing, it was just the shore on the beach. And this is one of the most famous beaches in the Eastern Mediterranean. Questions about how we introduced the building, all these were aspects that we had to make some decisions. So we started, for example, from presenting first the plan drawing of the building, and then rebuild its structure until the whole building is rebuilt before the eyes of the visitor. Then regarding the second aspect of the location, we wanted to, for the visitors to notice was the rapid transformation of the built environment around the building, as I mentioned. And you can see here in this archival photograph how that there was nothing around the building when it was built in 1952, and how it ended up before this breakage in the history of the city with the war in 1974. And again, a screen grab from the experience of the visitor. For us, it was very important also to engage the visitor and immerse with the use of the soundscapes. And the whole city appears around the building. And lastly, the third experiential aspect related to the transformation of the environmental conditions of the location that we decided to communicate to the visitor of the virtual site regarded the presence of the sea in the virtual environment. This is a factor which has to do with another important thread of our contemporary coastal cities, which is the destruction of the coastline by erosion, a phenomenon that we expect to intensify in the coming decades with the rise of the sea level due to the impact of climate change. Notably, this posed a threat for the city that was already discussed about since the 70s, as we see in the newspapers of the time presented in the exhibition. And so this is what is the relation to the sea of the building in the morning, and how the sea actually touches on the building in the evening. The next objective regarded the visitor engagement and the way we would devise meaningful interaction mechanisms in the VR. We developed this by spatially distributing information from the archive in the virtual environment. And the visitor was able to explore the space and observe historic photographs from the archive, as you will see here. So there were these flashing arrows floating on the ground, and when the visitor did interact and would walk on over them, there would be photographs appearing. They were positioned in the virtual environment in exactly the same location from which the photographs were taken. And last was the objective of the layering of the content in order to engage with the visitors through the presentation of personal memories. This was the most challenging part of the creation of the installation, as it relates to difficult narratives of this contested space that is still inaccessible today. Our approach to presenting personal memories of this example of difficult heritage was to interpret these memories by means of sound performances that were conducted by actors we collaborated with for the production of the installation. These acting performances drew from the voice recordings of the memories of past users of the building that we collected through interviews for the needs of the project. By doing so, we aimed at bringing other voices to the fore and to expand the virtual space and the visitor's experience by including personal accounts of the building regarding how this space was appropriated, stories about the everyday activities that were hosted in the spaces of the building, and events that were taking place in there. These are memories relating to the life of the building, an insight that enriches our understanding of the space in its presence in people's lives. The visitor can go closer to the tables in the restaurant to eavesdrop conversations of the building's past users, reenacted by the actors we collaborated with. These conversations and soundscapes are combined with archival photographs that are laid on the tables in an effort to travel the visitors to the precise physical condition of the space they are exploring in the virtual environment, and thus extend it beyond what the eye sees. Of course, our intention was to include also Turkish Cypriot users of the building by introducing photographs sourced by both communities on the table. But unfortunately, it was very difficult to cross to the north during the period we were developing this installation due to restrictions imposed by the pandemic, by COVID. But we intend to further pursue this as soon as the condition will allow us. I will conclude by briefly presenting the feedback we collected from visitors of the exhibition. We asked them to evaluate the experience provided by our application, the level of realism in the representation of space, the richness of the historic content and information that is provided in the virtual environment, to assess the quality of visualization, as well as to tell us about the interaction design and the graphical user interface of the application. And I will just show you some of the results of the evaluation. 40% of the interviewees were somehow experienced with VR, while 53% somehow experienced with video games. 64% agreed or strongly agreed that the virtual objects seem to belong to the historically accurate space of the building. 81% felt that the experience was not tiring, and 92% found the experience interesting. 34% would prefer to experience the virtual visit with company, while 41% were neither positive or negative to this. 62% felt that the immersion would be weaker if the visualization of the building was less realistic, but just 38% would like to leave comments in the virtual environment. 79% were interested in listening to stories and narratives via sound spatially distributed in the building, and this was very rewarding for us, for the concept of integrating memories in the building in this way. And 62% would like to learn more about the building by means of a VR visit. 87% would like to interact with more objects in the VR and be able to explore the whole neighborhood. And the same percentage noticed the presence of the high-rise building in the coastline, while just 51% noticed the rise of the sea level and the connection to the relevant display with the newspapers in the exhibition. So concluding, through this presentation today, I wanted to introduce aspects of a virtual environment we created in order to help the visitors of this gallery to understand a building and its life through an interpretative process that differs from looking at representation media that are typically used in design exhibitions, such as models, drawings, photographs, renderings, and text. We argue that the outcome of this VR-enabled study of architectural heritage can become an extension of the archive through time-based visualizations like our City Symphony-inspired immersive environment. And with this, I would like to thank first the members of the team, and in particular, Nicolas Luca, who was responsible for the development of the VR application, and of course, the people who shared with us their memories and stories of the building. And I would like to thank you for your attention today.